All right, everybody, welcome back. It's the Rick Mast Show. I know it's been a while. The great Rick Mast right there. I'm Charlie Marlow. Rick, how the heck are you, man? It's
Man,
been too long.
it has been too long. We took a little break, Charlie, but we're back. We're full of piss and vinegar. Man, we've got opinions. We had Thanksgiving turkey. We got that out of the way, right? We went to the Stocks for Tots deal in Mooresville a couple weeks ago. Big turnout with fans. That was a neat deal. Man, you ever see so many older NASCAR people in your life go to this deal? If you've never been to that deal, folks, and you're an old-time school racer, you need to go to that because every name that you can think of from old school racing attends that deal. It's like 70 NASCAR personalities, Charlie. It was pretty wild. I did that thing years and years ago. I think it's his 35th. That was his 35th deal, right? Don Miller. Everybody knows Don Miller with Penske Racing and all that. He puts that thing on. He still does it, barely getting around, but he still does it. That was cool. And now we're getting ready for Christmas, right? We get through Christmas. We get through New Year's Eve, okay? We can watch a little football. Then what can we do, Charlie? The Daytona 500, baby. It's coming. That's what I'm waiting on. It's the countdown for it.
I love it. So the event for Tots, what was it called? What's the event called?
It's called Stocks for Tots. It's the deal Don Miller started, like I said, 35 years ago, and they raise money. And it's all for the children down there, and it's such a cool deal, well attended, well organized, just a good deal.
Love it. So give us, we'll start there. Give us your best interaction, your best story. I know you've had a lot of, I'm guessing, kind of reunion type events with the NASCAR alumni this past year, but who did you see? Who'd you talk to at the event? Give me some stories.
Yeah, mainly I sat between Dave Barkus and Bob Pockratz, right?
Okay.
And Bob is, of course, Dave. Everybody knows Wingtip Dave, right? He had his lovely wife Helen with him, and we were talking about the flood, right? He lives in the Asheville, North Carolina area, and he wasn't hit by the flooding. And then Pockratz, he's just a good dude. He's just a good, quiet dude. Lives in New York. He lives in New York City, dude.
Yeah.
He lives in, what did he tell me, Brooklyn? Well, I forget what he said, but he had the city. So I mean, that's a lot of flying he does. You would think he would be in Charlotte. I had no idea. I thought the dude had to live in Charlotte because anything that breaks in NASCAR, he's on it in 3 seconds. And no, the dude lives in New York. I'm not sure how he pulls that off. I guess with electronics and what we're looking at here, right? He's able to get the word out there. But he's a nice dude. I'm happy for him. I remember when he first came into sport, and he's very unassuming, very shy, very quiet, but he gets it done. Mike Wallace, he was on the other side of me over there, and he was just going on with a lot of different things, So I spent a lot of time with Waddell Wilson, my old crew chief at Cal Yarborough, right? I saw Rodney Childers. I talked to Kevin LePage. I haven't seen Kevin LePage in forever, and we networked about the alumni network. Kevin was asking all about the NASCAR alumni network, and he's not part of it. But anyhow, I gave him information, and I don't know, just so many of these guys that were there. And then, golly, the amount of Skull or Rick Mast paraphernalia I had to sign. I'm like, man, oh man, oh man, it's been a long time since I've signed that much Rick Mast fan autograph paraphernalia, man, from diecast to posters and cards and just all kinds of stuff. But what they do, they advertise the drivers and the personalities are going to be there, so the people that bought tickets and know who the drivers are, they could grab all their stuff and bring it that had been autographed, right? So it's a cool deal for the fans, man. It's a cool deal.
Very cool. All right, so and we're going to get to kind of our NASCAR season wrap because our show here didn't really do one,
right?
Because you had a little bit of a health issue. Tell people about that.
Well, in 1975, when I was 18 years old, I had a lower hernia that busted and had it repaired. Then in 1978, I had a right side hernia busted, right? Repaired that. And then about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, both of them busted again, Charlie, right? And I went to my doctor and he said, you got a hernia. You got hernias. I said, yeah. He said, we need to fix them. I said, well, I don't really have time right now. I don't want to fool with it. He said, well, you'll know when it's time, right? So guess what? This year it was time. So we went to UVA. Great facility, man. I'm telling you right now, I told the people at UVA, from the time I first went to the doctor's visit to the time we went to the surgery center to the time I was let out, that it's like, Charlie, you know how the folks at Chick-fil-A are You go into
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A and they're happy and they're just real respectful and is the nicest people you ever run across. Well, I told the people at UVA in their survey, I said, man, y'all must send y'all staff to the Chick-fil-A training center because it's just great people there, right? From the beginning to the end. And we had a couple little complications, but, we got all that worked out, and I'll tell you something about it, Charlie. They told me it was swelling. You have swelling, right? I'm like, okay. So I come home, we operate all bit. I'm later in the chair and I'm still on the Oxycontin from the surgery. And, I have to go to the bathroom and go to the bathroom. Well, they don't tell me that you swell up the size of a grapefruit, right? And so that was a little shocking. I'm not going to go into detail about what went on and what happened, but it was a shocking experience for a little while. But anyhow, it's all said and done. I'm healed up, ready to go, baby, ready to go.
And we texted about this. Just a quick story from me 2 years ago. So I had emergency abdominal surgery about 2 years ago. I had an obstruction. They had to take out a couple centimeters, I think, from my jejunum. I can't remember exactly, but I have a nice little 8-9-inch scar through my belly button. And then, of course, after that, I get a nice big old hernia. And this thing, at first I'm thinking, okay, I see a little thing. I swear, Rick, this thing was size of a softball, and it was right at the top of my abdomen. And it was just from an aesthetics, it was so bad. So I went and got that removed about, I don't know, 8-9 months after that. And I'm pretty good. The scar's also a little better, but I still got a little hernia at the top, but it's not as big. So I think I'm just going to live with it. Right. It's not perfect, but now I have to get all ripped. I have to get some abs so I can, because otherwise it looks like I have a nice big little pregnancy button.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I remember Mark had one time. Mark Martin, he had a mesh put in. That's why we were still racing.
I got that. Yeah.
But anyhow, whatever.
All right. Moving on from hernia surgeries that we both know too much about. Let's throw it to you this way, because again, we didn't do the season recap show. Take it any direction you want, whether it's the championship at Phoenix, season as a whole. Just give me your thoughts, Rick Mast, on the 2024 NASCAR season.
Well, I will pat myself on the shoulder and remind everybody that I did pick a Penske car to win the championship. I remember I said if a Penske car is in it, that's going to be the favorite, just because they've had a good setup for that racetrack the last 2 or 3 years. With Blaney, and again, it proved to be true. The only way you fix that is you change the track for the last race, right? I thought it was, man, this playoff deal, Charlie. I'm telling you. It creates so much excitement. I mean, it really does from what we used to be. Now, I'm going to make a statement here in a little bit, and I want Steve Phelps with NASCAR to listen. I want everybody to listen. But anyhow, we get down to the end, and I don't know. It's just exciting. It just is. So it's going to stay. Now, here's and congratulations to Logano and the Penske group, right? Again, not a surprise to me. Logano he got in because the other guy got kicked out, and that's made some fodder for fans not liking that. But it's set up and it's structured the way it is. Here's my deal. I've been paying close attention since the championship race to social media, right, and what the fans are saying. Now, I have a fix for this, Charlie. I'm telling you, I've got a fix for this. I think I do. Well, I know I do. The fans. They're complaining. The fans complain. Here's what you got. You got a group of fans. You got fans, right? You got a percentage of them that do not like the playoffs, period. All right? We can tweak, restructure, whatever we're going to do. Those group of fans are not going to like the playoffs. But here's the problem with that, fans. The playoffs are not going away. So you're going to have to learn how to accept them or whatever, or quit watching or whatever you want to do. But they're not going away. I'm telling you that. Then you have a group of fans that, all right, they go along with the playoffs, but they don't like the structure of it and the outcome sometimes, right? So you get to read and pay attention to those fans, and a certain amount of those fans don't like that the winner or the guy that won the most, the dominant guy for all year, he didn't make the Final Four. The fans don't like that. Well, if you compare it to ball and stick sports or stick and ball sports, The Kansas City Chiefs, they win 13 games during the season. They go to the first round of the playoffs, and guess what? They lose. So you go to the Super Bowl, so your most dominant team didn't get in the final chase championship Super Bowl, right? So, but we're not a stick and ball sport. I remember when this thing happened, I remember a clip came out, Richard Petty, he said that, our sport, we go all year long, and whoever's the best at the end, you add them up to the last race, whoever's got the most points win. And he says that's kind of one of the things that separates us from the other sports, right? It keeps us separate from it. He was kind of, I think, complaining about the new format when it first came out. And so you have groups of fans that feel that way, and I understand that. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But what I saw was most of the people either fussing about Logano getting into the Final Four because of the trouble with what's his name. But anyhow, most of it was with Bowman. Most of it was, the guy that was dominant is not in the deal. This year being Kyle Larson. So here's my remedy for this right now. Steve Phelps, I know you're going to listen to this one way or the other. Somebody at NASCAR is going to make you listen to this, Steve. So anyhow, here's Rick Mast's thoughts on what you need to do. Leave everything the same. Don't change a thing with this point, with this playoff. Don't change a thing. When we get to the next, when the next to the last race is finished and the 4 drivers are in the show, right? The guy that is not in the show that has the most wins gets in the show. So you've got a final 5.
I like it.
Right? That will cut out a lot of the people are going to still gripe and bitch. I understand that, but that's the one thing that I saw that was a constant among the people fussing. Right? The guy that was so dominant. And again, we're not a stick and ball sport, right? So we got to be a little different. We want to be a little different. We don't want to be exactly like those guys, right? Kansas City Chiefs win 12 games. They lose first round. They're not in the Super Bowl. Kyle Larson wins 10 races more than anybody else. Guess what? He's in our Super Bowl. And here's the other thing, Charlie and Steve. Think of the hype. Think of the drama. Think of the conversations with the media, with the broadcast commentators. Think of the things they're going to be talking about during these last few races. Well, he's into points. If he wins, if you win, you're in. We get that. But all right, if this guy wins, but he's sitting over here with 8 races, he's going over here with 8 wins. He's not in the show right now. He needs to win to get in, right? Well, and we're putting everything on win to get in. I mean, win is what the emphasis of this playoff system is win, win, win. Well, I truly believe if we add the guy that didn't make the top 4, but has the most wins, that's not in the top 4 at that moment, put him in the show, baby. Put him in the show. I think a lot of the criticisms goes away. We're still going to get criticized. I understand that. People are not going to like it for whatever reason. Things are going to go wrong. But I think we do that, man. I think we fix a lot of things. And we can call it the Rick Mast wild card. Yeah, call it the Rick Mast wild card, Steve. I don't care what you call it. Call it anything you want. But I really, truly believe that might be the answer to this. What do you think, Charlie? Does that make sense?
It does. I like this. And just so I want to clarify here. So let's say Kyle Larson wins 8 races, but he also makes the Final 4. In your scenario, it's going to be whichever driver did not make the Final 4. So there's 5 drivers every year, but it's the guy who's out who has the most wins.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it might be a year, you might get a year where, there's 3 or 4 drivers that have 3 wins or 4 wins. Okay. That's not in, right? Where he gets in. But then when you have a year like you had this year with Larson being dominant, it just puts emphasis on that, and I just think it'll drop a lot of drama, man. It'll drop a lot of fodder for the scribes of our sport, broadcasters, everybody be talking about trying to figure this other element. We've got to figure out this other element over here. We got the Final 4, but we also got to talk about this other element over here. And it adds, of course, it adds more confusion. I get that, but heck, it's confused anyhow, so it doesn't matter. Well, you just you get to the Final 4, you're in. We get all that, but how to get there at times with the points and all that, sometimes it's a little confusing. So I don't think that really adds to confusion anymore. What we got, I think it'll just be a bigger deal, better deal for our sport.
I love it. And just because you brought it up, though, I got to throw it back to you. So what
Okay.
happens? And we can kind of talk this through, because
Yeah.
we're all just, everybody's kind of doing this. How
Yeah.
can we just perfect this
Yeah.
a little better?
Yeah.
Not get rid of it. I love the
Right.
playoff format. How
Right.
can we tweak it? So I think these
Right.
conversations are really good. So I like your idea. Let's just say, hypothetically, let's say that whoever four they're in, but let's say next year, I'm just going to throw out random names. Let's say William Byron, Denny Hamlin, and let's just say Joey Logano don't make it, but they all are tied with, let's say, probably 2 or 3 wins.
Okay.
How do you break the tiebreaker to get in your 5?
It has to be by either go by the other tiebreakers. Either whoever's got the most second place finishes. If that's tied, whoever's got the most third place finishes, right? Or you go who's got the most points at that point. NASCAR can decide that whichever way they want to go with that. If your emphasis is on winning, then you have to go with second place finishes or third place finishes. If your emphasis is on points, you have to go with who's got the most points, right? And this is all about winning for the playoffs. Win and you're in, and some consistency. Then that's how you would go. That's how you would fix the tiebreaker.
Okay.
But I don't know that the way these cars are right now and the way things are structured, it wouldn't surprise me until we change things. It wouldn't surprise me a bit that we have somebody that breaks out with something set up with their car for a period of time that it's just dominant. All right. And they go on some kind of crazy streak at some point during the season and knock off 5, 6, 7, 8 wins, kind of like Larson did. And this car sets itself up for that type of thing. It really does, because it's so finite in all the things they do to make this car a winning car or a lap down car. It's just so close, and you come up with something that works, man. These guys stick to it, and it happens. So but anyhow, that's what I would do with it, with the tiebreaker, I think.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I didn't grow up a hardcore NASCAR fan. I am now. I love the playoff format. I understand why some old school folks don't love it. I think it's absolutely great for picking up the casual sports fan. And here's something I feel like is missing in the debate. And I've been thinking about this for a while. I haven't really seen a lot of this discussion, and it's this. Joey Logano, who now has 3 championships, but people say, okay, his last 2, he wasn't that great during the regular season, blah, 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 blah. And I get that argument. Whatever he was this year, I think, was he 16th in points or whatever it was. I understand the argument. But I feel like the argument that we have in other sports is not being had in NASCAR, which is, what about being clutch? Yeah. What about the fact that, like, we celebrate in other sports, we celebrate the Derek Jeters, the Tom Bradys, the Bill Belichicks. You mentioned the Kansas City Chiefs, the Patrick Mahomes, that for whatever reason in the playoffs, they elevate their game, they raise their game, they win championships. And I feel like nobody's saying that. A lot of people are kind of criticizing Joey Logano, and I understand it. Again, I think it's a fun debate. But how about the fact that when everything is on the line, he and Team Penske rise to the occasion in the same way that everybody was criticizing Aaron Judge because he didn't have a good playoffs. And your guy, Freddie Freeman, was the king because he rose to the occasion during the World Series, the biggest spotlight of the year. I feel like nobody's saying that about Joey Logano. How about the fact that this dude has huge balls and the moment doesn't get to him and he freaking just rises to the occasion every year?
Yeah. Point well taken, Charlie. I agree with you 100%. I think one of it is with social media, I think we've just set ourselves up to be able to criticize and instead of lament the good stuff that goes on, right? I just feel that is part of what this is about. No doubt, when the playoffs happen, Logano is there, right? And we see it, like you said. All I can do is repeat what you just said. I agree 100% with what you said. I think he's not being celebrated for doing what they've done, for pulling off what they pulled off, right? The celebration should be 100 times more than what's going on instead of criticizing the guy. It should be, because this is what we do. We race all year. Everybody knows the rules. Kyle Petty's making people mad, but say, listen, when we go to Daytona, we know what the rule is. We know what the playoff rules are all through the season, and it all gears towards the last few races. That's what this whole thing is geared towards. For whatever reasons, right? Penske, at the end of these deals, their cars turn and they hook up the gas. They turn and they hook up in the gas, and they're just dominant cars, at the last few races of the championship. It's the way it is. Now, is that by chance? Is that something they work towards? Is that what they're geared toward? I think Joey, personally, I think as a driver, I think he steps it up a level. I truly do, right? And I think the team probably understands maybe that it does, so the team has to step it up a little. If I was in the sport right now and I was a car owner, crew chief engineer, I would be looking at this point structure. I would look at the last few races of the year and what's on the schedule, right? What the money races. That's the last few races. That's the championship races. My whole goal as a crew chief engineer owner would be to make my car fast at those racetracks, whatever those racetracks are. Whenever I'm at anywhere else all year long, I'm thinking, how can I apply this knowledge to those last few racetracks in the championship? Because that's where it all happens. And I truly believe that's what Penske does. I think they look at those last racetracks and work all year towards what can we do to make our cars good at those racetracks. You take that and couple it with Joey stepping it up, Blaney steps it up, right? Everybody steps it up. And I know this, when you got a good thing going with your team and the driver, and the car's working good, and the driver steps it up a little bit, now you're going a little bit quicker, everybody just steps it up. And that seems to be what goes on with the Penske organization at the championship time. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say about, I think a tweak, and a lot of people have brought this up. Now, could you do the final 3 races or the final 2 races kind of, you don't just have the one and done championship final race, although you do kind of lose that game 7 moment. Joey Logano has talked about that. But I do think that NASCAR is so track dependent in terms of particular tracks are so important in that just some teams are better on certain tracks. I do think you get to a point where if you lock into one track being the final race, like Phoenix, for many years in a row, we could see more of this where one team could dominate. And by the way, all teams have the same chance to dominate. I understand that. But I think just to have maybe some more variance, I don't even know if fairness is the right term. I think you should have, and we know weather is important, but if you just pick, let's say, Vegas, Homestead, and Phoenix, and you rotate those 3 for the final 3 races, so the championship race is at a different track, let's say every 3 years. And you can change it, by the way. You could do this for a 6-year rotation, and then you could add or subtract another track after that if you don't like the way things are going. But I like warm weather, Vegas, Miami, Phoenix, rotating those 3 like in the last 3 races. So it's not just Phoenix deciding everything every year. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I've had that thought too, Charlie. I think it's a great thought. That's why I picked the last 2 years. I picked Penske car to win the championship because you just watch what they've done at Phoenix Racetrack with this new car, right? They've got it going on, man. They've got it working. And so if you change the tracks around, of course, it gets in again, Charlie. It gets into NASCAR's hampered a little bit because of the venues, right? And it's not easy to just change around the schedule because you got to do it a year in advance, right?
Right.
For all these tracks to have their marketing stuff and selling tickets and all that. It's not like the ball and stick and ball sports. But yeah, I agree 100%. You could change that around a little bit each year, where the last races. Well, I'll tell you what would happen. Here's what would happen, Charlie. If you did that, say next year, the last race is going to be Homestead, right? You're going to ask me who's going to win the championship. I'm going to say, I don't have a clue, right? Well, what if Penske's in that? No, I'm not going to give them the advantage. But if we go back to Phoenix next year, and you ask me who's going to win the championship, I'm going to tell you if a Penske car is in there, they're the favorite, right? We change tracks, that's not going to happen. So yeah, that's a good valid point. Steve, are you listening? Yeah, you are.
For sure. He better be. All right. We got some people watching here live. Get your questions for Rick in. Get your comments in. We'll get to them here a little later towards the end. Just some NASCAR hot topics. The lawsuit is lingering, I'd say.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about at the end of the season. And then obviously you focus on the championship. There's been some more developments. Obviously, NASCAR is not messing around.
No.
It looks like they're not, at least right now, they're not willing to compromise. Now, down the road, could that change? But give me your thoughts on just where we're at right now with the lawsuit.
The first thing I find interesting, Charlie, here, honestly, it seems like we have a lot of fans are taking NASCAR's side on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're so used to social media to everybody beating up on NASCAR, right, with everything negative. But it seems like there's a higher percentage of fans on this deal that surprising to me. I've been very surprised that they're sticking up for NASCAR instead of the teams, right? But anyhow, that's just a side note. Charlie, I listened to the guy, I forget the name, the lawyer for 23X Front Row, the race team's lawyer. I listened to him on Moody's show a while back. It's like a 15 or 20-minute interview. And he laid out everything, all right? And I listened to this dude. I'm like, number one, he's very impressive. It's very impressive that with the victories he's had in this same type of situation with other types of sports, right? The baseball deal, the football deal, and some of that basketball. But anyhow, so I listened to him go through that a little bit. Then I listened to him talk about the suit against NASCAR, right? And the one thing I'll say, Charlie, everybody that's talking about this, they'll get to a point and they'll say, I don't know law. I don't understand law. You've heard that I've heard that from so many people on here.
That's where I'm at.
Well, me too. I'm the same way, right? But in law, I do know that there are some lay terms that come into effect that really apply to law. Okay, and I'm listening to this dude. I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. But when he's said and done, I'm like, I don't know law, but I don't know in lay terms if the way you've been victorious in your other suits is going to work in this case, because NASCAR is not like, as we've talked about this, Charlie, many times, and everybody knows it. NASCAR is not structured like the other professional sports, right? NASCAR is a private entity, and the competitors, we're all private contractors signed up to be part of the show, right? And if you listen to some of the stuff he was saying, I'm like, man, I don't know the law, but in lay terms, that won't fly to me in a courtroom. What you just proved in your other cases, in using that same logic here with NASCAR, in lay terms, it's not going to fly. I don't think, not knowing anything about the law. And that's my wife calling, by the way. She's calling me. But
you can take it live on the show.
No, I better not do that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say look at here, on air right now. See what it says?
There you go.
On air right now. There it is. Oh, Lord. There it went. Okay. But anyhow, so I'm concerned. I'm concerned that, the end result of this thing is not going to go well for the teams. And I don't know what that means. Nobody doesn't want Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin in front row in this sport. Nobody doesn't not want them in this sport. Everybody wants them in this sport. NASCAR wants them in the sport, right? Everybody wants to be in the sport. Now, you got hardliners on both sides right now, Charlie. We got Larry McReynolds on one side. He dug his, he made his statement. He dug his heels in the sand and he's doubled down on it, right? And then you've got the other side that kind of doubled down on their deal. And so you've got two different factions here. But man, I'm telling you, again, from a lay standpoint and not understanding the law, it just It didn't make sense to me what the guy said and the way he was going after this. It just didn't make. Oh, it made sense, but it didn't make sense to me that this was going to work in the way NASCAR is structured and going through the same type of things. So you get that out of the way. Now you look at, well, okay, what's NASCAR's stats? I'm telling you, dude, we've talked about this. Everybody's talked about it. You talk to old school racers, and I've talked about it before. And we caught heat, for it. But NASCAR, it's hard to buck them, dude. It's just hard to buck them and come out. I mean, they're, the way they're structured. Again, it's a private company, and we all agree to sign up to go in their playing field and play in their sport, that they own and they 100% control, right? It's always been that way. And here's the deal. It's always been very successful, Charlie, right? I mean, here we came through a period of explosion and growth in our sport that nobody else, I think, saw coming. The amount of growth we had and the explosion back into, the end of my career, into the 90s, into the 2000s. We go through this, and then the economy tanks, right? NASCAR loses its way with some of the marketing stuff they do, and we lose tons of fans. But here we start our crawl back up through there, and here we are in 2024 with a brand new TV package, right? Contract that's the highest it's ever been, right? All the numbers look good. The ratings this year look good. So, everything's on the upswing. We'll never get back to where we were at one time, I don't think. I just don't think we were. Hell, one time, Charlie, we were being rumored to take over NFL, right? And NFL is the most successful friggin' franchise sports deal in the history of the world from the beginning of time through now. And I mean, that's how crazy our thing had gotten at one time. But anyhow, the sport hit its dip. It went down. The sport's back. It's on the upswing now. And for these guys to think that they're just going to bully NASCAR around, it doesn't work. It doesn't, NASCAR, I mean, I don't know. NASCAR would liable to lose. In the legal battle, they liable to lose everything they're talking about. They liable to lose everything, right? Or lose all the case. In 23X and Foot Row gets everything they want. But I don't know. I can't answer that. But to me right now, man, it just doesn't look good for a good outcome for these race teams. And, and none of this is good for the sport. None of this is good for the sport, but it is what it is. And I'm just telling you, I've told y'all before, you're not going to bully NASCAR around. It's just, it doesn't happen. They have their way of doing things. They've been successful, and they're going to continue to do it that way until a judge says you can't do it. But I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Here's something I've observed about this. And you tell me, but I think most people can agree that or I shouldn't say most people, but I think, could NASCAR budge a little bit, make it a little easier on the teams to make money or not lose money year to year? I think that's a fair argument. Here's what I've noticed, though. It seems like almost all of the old school racers, right, that I've seen weigh in on this, it seems like almost all of them take NASCAR's side versus the teams / drivers. When, if you think about it, all these old school drivers used to be in the spot that the teams or drivers are in now. So first of all, tell me if you think I'm right on that. And why do you think that's the case? It seems like a lot of the old school guys are siding with NASCAR, where if you were driving right now, you'd probably be saying, hey, let's try to make it a little better for us, like it was back in your day. If you guys were making a bunch more money and the sport was healthier. What do you think about that?
I think a lot of it has to do, Charlie, with we didn't have a net. My whole career, I never had a net. We didn't have a safety net. The owners didn't have a safety net. We didn't have anything. You go to the racetrack, you fail to qualify, you've got a Fortune 500 company on your quarter panels that's expecting you to perform, and you go out there and you've got not 30, but you've got 45 race teams that's got Fortune 500 companies on their race cars, right? Only 42 is going to start the race that day. 3 is going to go home, okay? There's no safety net. And everybody, with it to a fault, in my time in NASCAR, all through the 80s, the 90s, right up through when I got out in 202, everybody in the garage area said, man, we need some kind of safety net. We need something to protect us. We need something to protect because we lost. I'm gonna tell you something, Charlie. We lost a lot of sponsorships. We lost a lot of companies because teams failing to make races. Okay, put all this money in there, and you go to the racetrack with you got a big suite set up there, and you got all the CEOs, CFOs, COOs, everybody in the company and customers, and all this branding and stuff. They're sitting in the suite. They go start the race. Hell, the car's not there. Where's my car? They didn't make a show. Well, this is embarrassing. They pull out the sport. This thing came along to protect the teams. It came to protect the sponsors, but to protect the teams. And one of the side benefits was it was supposed to give the team owners, some blue sky value to their teams because when so many of the teams and everybody, we talk about it, Bud Board, Junior Johnson, everybody, when they went out of business, it's a fire sale. Only thing of value was what the equipment was worth, right? So the charter thing was a benefit to that. And it was just something that we all wanted so bad, something like this, our whole careers, right? And now it comes along and NASCAR's got it. And we're like, man, you guys don't really understand how good you've got it right now as compared to the way we had to deal with it, right? Now, the other side of it is drivers made more money in my time than they make right now, which is wild, Charlie, or I should say the latter from 2004 and 5 on up through, right? The drivers made more money than what they make right now. And that was because that was during the explosion. That's when this thing exploded. That's when the money, you just count the money, man, as it was rolling in. Okay. And it's not like that now. So I get it from that perspective. I get it from a perspective of owners not making profits, not making money. You can't make money doing it. Why the hell are you doing it? Well, a lot of people do it because they love it. Okay. What Rick Hendrick say, I just got tired of arguing with him about the charter and just signed it. Well, and Tony Stewart made the remark, you think Rick Hendrick runs his business that way? He gets tired of arguing about somebody about a business deal and just I'm gonna sign it and walk away. Tony's point was, no, you don't do that. Well, there has to be a love for the sport. There has to be a love for what you're doing that kind of overrides that. Now, you can't be set up for the teams to lose money. I mean, I get all this, guys. I get what they're doing. I get what 23X Front Row's trying to do. They're trying to get more money for the race teams. That's what they're trying to get. And some of the things I think a little bit more power, a little bit more control. And that'll never happen. Okay. That's not going to happen. But the money thing, I totally understand that. But if all the other teams can make it, without going bankrupt, well, maybe these two teams can make it. I don't know. But I understand both sides. And it's a funny thing, but I just don't. Again, it goes back to my other point, Charlie. I don't know that the stuff that's been valid in this law firm's other lawsuits are going to hold water in a NASCAR court. I just don't know.
Yeah, I do wonder sometimes how far off are they? Now there are some teams leaving. Tony Stewart Haas leaving, and he's basically said a lot of it has to do with the economic model. But then on the other side, you do look and you see, okay, 2311 Michael Jordan. They probably had this lawsuit, when I say in their back pocket, like thinking about filing this for the last year or so, right? As they're going through these negotiations. While they're doing that, they're building this unbelievable multi-million-dollar, beautiful new facility. They're also trying to add a third team, a third charter, right, with Riley Herbst.
Correct.
And then somebody like Brad Keselowski, who's been very vocal on this as well. He's a very smart businessman. And they're adding another team. I know some of the charter stuff is kind of hanging in the balance here because of this lawsuit, but they're trying to add Ryan Preece there. So I do wonder sometimes, well, okay. And by the way, I always kind of say in a tie, I will err on the side or kind of go to the side of labor versus capital in a tie. And that would be, in this case, the drivers and the teams. But I just wonder sometimes, well, how bad can it really be if you're still building this new facility and you're adding teams, right? Like if the model is so bad, and I don't think it's perfect by any means, but if it's so bad, why are you adding third teams? That also doesn't kind of sit with me perfectly.
Yeah, I know. And in the 23X deal, you can see that because Michael Jordan has more money than God right now. Okay. And whatever he wants to do, he can do. And I guess he could run the team all year, not even get money coming in or whatever for positions. But if you want to go down that type of road, which you can't do that. Nobody in their sane or right mind would do that. But they made some mistakes, man. They said they would run the deal next year without the charters. That come up in court, right? And they talked about the drivers leaving and not being able to get sponsorships. That come up in court, and that all got thrown out. But at the same time, they're saying, we're going to add another team, okay? But and what I think about is we talk about this all the time, and everybody always talks about Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin, but what about front row? You know what I mean? What about front row motorsports? I mean, does that guy have more money than God to be able to fight this? I don't think so. But they're still viable. But to your point, that part does discredit somewhat what they're after, what they're saying, and because you're doing this, you're still trying to add. You want to add another team. I'll run without the charter, making that statement. Man, it just some of it at times just doesn't add up. But then you've got teams that agreed to do it, albeit they didn't get all they wanted. And I think I made the comment when they signed this deal. We didn't get everything we wanted, but it's a workable deal. We can make this work, and that's what all the teams agreed to. So, it's a wild situation, man. It's a wild situation.
On the same topic, kind of, we have our guy Brian Kidder here has a question, and he says, if you're a sponsor coming into NASCAR, who do you go to, the teams or NASCAR? And Denny Hamlin has brought that up as well, saying, look, we're part of a league, but this is where NASCAR, I think, is totally different than a lot of other sports. Now you're seeing these other sports start to add the jersey, right? The jersey logos, the business logos. Just in the last couple of years, baseball did that.
Right.
You saw in the postseason, they had the ads on the helmet for baseball. You're seeing basketball does that. Soccer, I feel like European soccer has always done that. But NASCAR is so sponsor driven. That also seems like part of this issue is that if you're a big time Fortune 500 company, you're being pitched by both the teams and the sanctioning body of the sport.
Yep. It's always been that way, Charles.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's been that way from the beginning of time. At one time the saying was, we got somebody we're talking to about a sponsorship. Well, don't let NASCAR know. Don't let NASCAR know because they'll try to take it, right? And that was one of the sayings that went on years ago in the garage area. And but it's very unique. To answer his question, if you want to sponsor a team, I'd walk right into that team. I'd walk right in the front door, walk to the receptionist, say, I'm so-and-so, I'm the CEO of what you call it, and I want to sponsor a race team. What can y'all sell me? Sell me, okay? That's the way that if a sponsor wants to do it. And I'm telling you, the way things are now, it doesn't work like that. The race teams are out here beating on companies, sponsors' doors.
Mm-hmm.
The sponsors don't go looking for race teams in the environment we're in right now. So everybody in this country that's got a company or they own a company or whatever, at some point you're going to get contacted by some representative of one of these race teams. Hey, are you interested in our sport? Even if you're not, let me sit down and explain our sport to you, right? And they start this long dialogue. I mean, there's companies that's been tutored for a long time, Charlie. I mean, I'm talking 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and even longer than one I know of, that were tutored, right? Or just the team was working with them for years, trying to get them to come over to the sport. And they do. A lot of times they do after a period of time. And it's pretty neat when that happens.
All right, folks, watching, get your questions and comments in. We will read them here live on the show. Here's one from about half an hour ago. Michael Yeats. How far are you from Lynchburg, Virginia?
Oh,
Rick?
40 minutes, 45 minutes.
Okay.
Right over the mountain.
Greetings. Yeah, he says, greetings from Lynchburg, Virginia. Rick, tell us a funny story about Kenny Wallace, please. Is there any Kenny Wallace story that you haven't told that you can? Or if it's an old one and a good one, you can tell it again. It's all good.
Not really. The most famous one that Kenny talks about a lot, but 1991 or 2 or 3 or 4, I forget what year it was, we were at Dover, and Uh, we were, I forget, we had just finished qualifying or practicing or something. I'm sitting on pit wall, sitting there, and Kenny comes up to me, and he's like a damn banty rooster anyhow. I mean, it's just like Kenny's just all over the place, guys. As y'all know, what you see here on the Kenny Wallace show, that's Kenny Wallace. Actually toned down a little bit because Kenny is like, man, you watch it and you go, he just wears you out watching it, right? And he comes up to me and he sits down and he's going on and on and on and on and on. He's fussing about his car. The car don't do this and don't do that. I go to turn one at the Spruced Up Racetrack, and I try to tell the crew chief, and the son of a bitch won't listen to me. And these people over here, and the motor ain't no good, and the owner's going to fire me, and just on and on and on and on and on and on. I let him go on for probably a good 3 or 4 minutes, right? And he's just, he's beside himself. The world's coming to the end. Everything's wrong. They're going to fire him. The car ain't working. He can't drive, blah, blah, blah. And finally, I get a little break, right? I said, Kenny. I said, Kenny, shut up just a second. Just be quiet. Just a second. Just a second. Hush a minute. He looks at me funny. I said, just settle down. Settle down just for a second. And I put my hands on his shoulders like this, right? And I said, Kenny, do you want to be a Winston Cup race car driver? Is that what you want to be? Is that what you're aspiring to be? Well, yeah. That's what I said. Settle the F down. Everything's going to be fine. You're good. Everything's working in your favor. Chill out. Settle down. Quit it. Everything's fine, right? And Kenny, and I didn't think about it anymore. And years later, Kenny brought that up. It changed his whole perspective of kind of how he was dealing with the pressures of being in our sport. Because, Charlie, I'm telling you, you cannot explain to anybody the pressure in our sport, at least in our time, the pressures on a driver in our sport. You cannot verbalize the pressures that you're under in our sport. And Kenny was just manifesting all those emotions out, just out of himself, out on his sleeve, man. And it was not being good for him. But anyhow, he got it worked around. So not really a funny story, but it's a good Kenny Wallace story. It's a Kenny Wallace story that I love.
I love it. Good stuff. All right. We'll have about 2 months here, right? 2 months to preview the 2025 season. But let's end on this, and we'll start doing more regular shows. So we'll have a lot to talk about. But just if I ask you right now, Rick Mast, what are you most excited about? Most excited about seeing, whether it's a track, a driver that might be able to step up, or on a new team? What are you most excited about for the 2025 NASCAR season?
It's honestly, Charlie, and this is the deal with me. It's a culmination of everything. It's not. I don't ever go into the first of the season, first of the year, really looking at one thing, and I think that came from the years of all the tests that we used to go to Daytona. We go down there to Daytona and test, and you'd be down there for 2 or 3 weeks, broken up. But then somebody or some team would be fast as the dickens old times. So you go to a Daytona anticipating to watch that car or be that car a time or two. We were, and you look at that stuff, and then after a period of time, I realized, what, I'm looking at this wrong. I need to look at this thing as a whole, right? Show me what to get excited about first. Give me what to be excited about. I mean, a couple of years ago, we had the new car. That was a whole deal, right? Everybody was excited and looking forward or whatever to what the new car was going to bring. Well, now we're on to third year or whatever it is of this fourth of this car. So we don't have that anymore. And we've got all these other things. And I'm telling you, Charlie, when the Daytona 500's over, when they wave that checkered flag, we're going to have more shit to talk about than you can imagine, because stuff just happens. And I guess that's probably the part I like, is the unknown, Charlie. What is going to happen in our sport that's going to make me excited and give me stuff to talk about and give me things to have opinions about and spout on the Rick Mast show. That's what excites me, is the unknown of our sport right now.
Yep. Any given Sunday. I know that's an NFL term, but NASCAR, yeah, for sure. So Ken Ruggles asks, he says, do next gen fans have the attention span for 300 to 600 mile races? And I'll say this. And this is where, maybe some old school fans disagree with me, but look, you should want to watch the whole race, but you don't have to watch the whole race. You can put it on, you can watch the pageantry, you can check in, 15 laps till the first stage. All right. go to the bathroom, eat some lunch, come back. Oh, 20 laps to the second stage. Okay. Then you lock in again, 50 laps till the end of the race. I mean, you can also watch it like that if you want to. You don't have to, but you can.
Yeah. Charlie, good question, kid. Because I'm gonna tell you something, kid. This is a question that's befuddled me. Right? All right. Here's the deal. We know there are very smart people at NASCAR, and not just NASCAR, but all the other sports. They have done the analytics on this. Right? They have to know what what the fan of today, as he calls the next gen fan, right? Millennial fan or whatever you want to call them. These people now that are becoming our fans and fans that we've got to get. What do they like? What will they support a 600-mile race? I don't know that. I think that NASCAR knows. I think they've figured this out. I think all the other sports have figured this out. I need to talk, and I always thought, man, I need to talk to somebody at NASCAR that's on this, right, that knows about this, to get an understanding of what they have figured out that they've got to produce for the fans to like. And one of those things is how long, what's the attention span, and how long do we keep these fans engaged? And I agree with you. Making a 600-mile race, well, you got to watch the whole thing. But I will say this, Charlie, we went to the Atlanta race in the fall, me and my family, and we sat in the grandstands. And we went in the garage area first, but we sat in the grandstands. We talked about that. And the race is, what was it, 500 miles? Is Atlanta 500 or 4? Hell, I don't even remember what it was. But I'll tell you this. We're sitting in the stands, and I think it was 500 or whatever it was. It was a regular race. That race was over before I knew it. Mm-hmm. Even sitting in the stands for that length of time, I'm like, I was engaged the whole time, dude, right? Now, it was Atlanta, and it was side-by-side, draft-style pack racing, right? If it had been a long, board, strung-out race, it probably wouldn't have been that way. But the race itself enabled me to stay engaged, and I noticed my family stayed engaged in that. So all that figures into this thing. So, again, I know these people haven't figured out what that timeline is. So, but I don't know.
And Ken jumps back in a comment here. He says, I've been a fan for 60 years and been through all the different stages of growth. The kids don't know what to do without a cell phone. That's also true, but that plays into how NASCAR and sports are consumed, whether it's watching the full race, but also are you getting people watching the highlights on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok? That all plays a role. How about Michael Hurt here? Michael Hurt, Rick, says, hello, just got a die cast of Rick's when he drove the 75 with Remington sponsorship. Any good stories from that time?
Man, we were going through a dry spell. Well, the 2 years that I was with that team, we didn't do well, okay? We just didn't do well. And for a lot of reasons. But anyhow, we were going through a dry spell one time, and we were at New Hampshire. We had 3 or 4 races of bad luck. Well, I roll in on Sunday morning, and my bus driver goes through, Rick, go look in your car. And I go, then the crew's all standing there, right? My crew chief and everybody. Go look in your car. And I go look in the car, and there's a chicken. There's a chicken in the seat of my car, sitting in the driver's seat. And I turn around, and they're all looking at me. I'm like, what are we doing? What the hell is a chicken for, right? They said, Rick, we're going to change our luck around. What are we going to do? We're going to sacrifice that chicken. I said, what? We're going to sacrifice the chicken. And somebody come up with some kind of crap about sacrificing a chicken would change your luck, right? What's about you cut the chicken's head off, and then I don't know what you did yet, but I don't know, some rigmarole they had worked up, right? And a couple of the guys are actually going to do that right there in the garage area. And then the team owner stepped in and put a stop to that, right? He didn't do that. But anyhow, but I'll tell you one thing, this triggers, Charlie. I'm going to tell everybody right now, folks that's listening to this, old Rick Mast fans or whatever, you might be getting some fan mail signed in the mail or fan stuff signed in the mail. And I tell you why, Charlie, when I was down for surgery during the holidays with the hernia deal, we uncovered, and I'm not going to get into how it happened or what happened, but we uncovered tons of fan mail that had gotten misplaced over the years.
Ooh.
Right?
How old? We're
Dude,
talking.
I'm talking about the oldest I saw postmark was 2007. Dude,
Dang.
I know. And I'm looking at this. My wife's looking at this like, how in the heck did we let this happen? Right. So I spent the last 3 weeks or whatever it's been now. I mean, my hands were. Look at my hand. It's like Fred Sanford. It's all gnarled up. See, from signing. So we did every one of them. I still got a few. We still got a few left yet to do. So if you sent something to me the last few years and it didn't come, guess what? It's in the U.S. Postal Service somewhere. We did all. And Charlie, I'm talking. Man, I don't know, dude. I bet it's probably 2,000 pieces or more. I mean,
Wow.
it's absolutely kind of humiliating, a little bit embarrassing. I'm like, how do we do this? We know without what happened, right? And it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault or my wife's fault. Let's put it that way. But there it is. So if you get something in the mail from way back from Rick Mast, you know what this is about. And I apologize to everybody that didn't get it or that did get it now that's happy. But whatever, we tried to make amends. So it's on the way. Hopefully it's on the way, people.
And you got to love it, though, if you're one of those people who hopefully still live at the same address, but they
Well,
sent you something 17 years ago, and all of a
yeah,
sudden they get it back.
yeah.
That's a pretty cool story as well.
Yeah, I don't know. They're probably like, what the hell, dumbass?
Oh, it's all good. I'm sure they have their forwarding address, and
Yeah,
it'll get to the right spot. It'll get
hopefully.
to these people.
Hopefully.
Tell you what, let's call it there. We're almost an hour. As I said, we're going to get back to doing more regular shows, or maybe we'll take a little break for Christmas, New Year's. We'll see. But I mean, next week we're pretty open. So, Rick, it's been fun, man. I'm
Been fun,
excited to
man.
get back to doing these again.
Yep. Can't wait for the Daytona 500, man. That's what I'm waiting for now. Wait a minute. It's not New Year's yet. No, I'm sorry. We got to do Christmas and New Year's. Then I'll be excited for it.
There you go. All right.
Toodaloo, guys.
Thanks.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, everybody. Please comment, like, subscribe, and we will see you later. See you, Rick.
Bye-bye. Cool.
And let me go ahead and end the stream. End stream. End stream.